unending message and dreams of being heavy dreaded. Found my truth and search for exercise.
Oh, okay. The top 5 garden mistakes. I've actually combined this list, so it's really like a top 9 mistakes, and the last one is the kicker. Okay, we'll start with weed cloth. Weed cloth is a nightmare, and what happens is somebody puts it in 10-15 years ago and it stays there forever. Soil gets put on top of it, mulch, until someone else comes along and they need to actually plant a new shrub or really do something to improve the garden, upgrade the soil, whatever. It doesn't matter what. That weed cloth is now a barrier. It is landfill is really what it is. It's not going to biodegrade, so you've actually bought garbage and laid it down, and it doesn't help at all if you need to improve your soil or add mulch or do anything like that. And it looks pretty bad if it gets exposed, which frequently happens when the erosion happens and you just have this sheer cloth. Okay, solar lights, path lights. People want light. They want to light up their garden. Problem is, they don't do that. The lumens, that's how they measure the amount of light from one of those little plastic solar-powered lights that you get at the that store that I'm not going to mention. Those things, they don't actually work. Frequently, they don't really light up enough for you to even see where you're walking, much less light up your garden and your home. The idea that they are a socially responsible alternative is also false when you compare them to low voltage lighting, which is an enormously more effective solution. The truth is, for some more money, yes, much like buying a light bulb, if you bought the old-fashioned halogen or if you bought the new energy efficient lights, one lasts 5 years, the other lasts like at best 5 months. Okay, so the cost, yes, upfront cost is much higher for a low voltage lighting system, but the amount of energy that it consumes is a fraction, and the cost compared to what it used to be years ago to do an electric based lighting system for your yard, for your garden, for your footpaths or whatever, the ease of installing something like this is amazing. I do a whole nother video, so just let's put those little stupid solar solar stake lights, just forget about them. All right, number 3 is a twofer. Initially it might sound like they don't have anything to do with each other, but actually there is a connection. One is fertilizer. That's the bad one. The good one is dormant oil. Fertilizer is probably the most overrated, overused, and overapplied product out there. There are companies that make billions of dollars just over the dissemination, many billions of dollars. Companies called Scouts and Miracle-Gro. There are no miracles when it comes to growing plants, healthy plants. There is only expertise, skill, care, nurturing, things like that. So for the outcome of using excessive fertilizer, I'm sure you've noticed if you've ever bought strawberries that taste like cardboard or vegetables that are flavorless, this is because the steroid-esque application of fertilizer. The same thing is true for your plants. Plants can only absorb so many nutrients at a certain rate anyhow, much the way we would ingest our own nutrients. If you give me excessive amounts of protein and don't give me something else, then eventually I'm not gonna be doing well at all. So we see plants that bolt. They get these big stalks and they don't look normal, and they're very odd looking growth habits. Fertilizer, see it in annuals all the time. Okay, so I'm not saying don't use fertilizer. I'm saying use much less. And don't think when you're buying plants that you need to buy fertilizer. You may need to apply a pellet, a slow release fertilizer, and apply it a couple times a year. And you can distribute that fairly liberally on your bigger items, your shrubs, your trees at that time, so that they can root out through the winter and absorb those nutrients slowly. That's that. The good news, the other product I should say, is dormant oil. Now dormant oil is kind of like the ignored stepson. Dormant oil actually does an enormous amount for your plants. It will really keep the bugs at bay. It kills the larvae, so it doesn't do any harm. It's essentially almost like a lot of people call it an insecticide soap. It creates a film around bugs and their eggs, their larvae, and will stop them from hatching. So dormant oil is one of those things that very few people even know about. And if we were to apply a dormant oil in a larger measure, your plants will ultimately, especially during the rainy season, they'll come out of that looking much healthier. All right, so dormant oil, if it's applied regularly, particularly in the early months of spring, but really throughout the year, will really add a lot to the health, the overall health of all your plants. Okay, so fertilizer, not so much. Dormant oil. Soil, not just any soil, garden soil. Now, I know what you're thinking, how could that be a mistake? It's easy. When you look at garden soil, you're really looking at a product that has been mass marketed and overpriced, and in the types of garden soil that are being presented to you are presented in a way that makes them appear to be some sort of extraordinary product for your garden. In fact, your garden doesn't need this extraordinary product. It only needs a good loam in most cases, and a mix of topsoil, and if you want, you can add some garden soil. However, what happens is most people will go and they look at the soil and they think, well, the topsoil is only $2, and then the garden soil, and the garden soil is priced up, and they assume that this is a better. But again, just like fertilizer, your plants don't care. They only need so much of a good thing. Now, the idea with garden soil is that it will aerate the soil, right? So that is good. And you can lighten the soil and things root out a little faster. Now, that's particularly good for like planters. If you're doing a planter and you put in topsoil, it's going to be extremely heavy and could be difficult to work with just to get a little trowel in there. All right, so if you want to get an expensive bag of garden soil, if you're doing a planter, that makes sense. Any other application outdoors in a garden bed, it is usually a waste of money. You could add a small amount, you could add a lot of topsoil if you need it, but really what you want to be doing is looking at your soil and turning it. In other words, aerating it yourself and mixing in a loam, leaf mold, or something like that. So if you have compost, you can just upgrade your soil gradually that way. You don't need to go buy tons of garden soil. Okay, so I put these three together because obviously they're all ground covers. They belong together, and you, with your good intentions to provide ground cover and prevent weeds and maybe retain moisture. I'm not sure if you thought of all those things. Your good intentions were yet again hijacked by corporate America and decided to offer you 15 different choices, all of which cost money and are more or less unnecessary and don't really do what they're intended to do. So let's start with wood chips. Wood chips sounds good. They're organic matter, meaning they're tree bark that has been formulated into these coin or size or larger pieces of bark, and they look good. The color looks good, and might naturalize your garden to some extent. The problem is that they do not decompose at the same rate that your soil would, or mulch would, or pretty much anything else. I mean, it's almost like throwing twigs into your garden. You're just going to have a mess when it comes to going back, planting the following year, planting annuals, planting shrubs. If you're planting something larger, the wood chips actually create air pockets and kind of make it very difficult. They're unyieldy and they don't decompose. So you always end up with these things scattered around your garden for years. Okay, so wood chips, no good. Then we get into white gravel. I guess this is what people frequently refer to, white stone, they call it. There's lots of different pebbles, and people like to apply pebbles. A lot of these look unnatural, and except for maybe river rock, can look good in certain situations, particularly where there's water or something like that. But white gravel does not belong in your garden anywhere. First off, white it reflects light, so it's really going to draw a lot of attention to itself, and it does not belong in nature, so it's completely unnatural, has no place, unless maybe your garden is a quarry somewhere next to a quarry. I guess it would look natural, but it doesn't belong in your garden. It also doesn't, like wood chips, it doesn't break down, obviously, so you end up with stones, lots of pebbles in your garden, which again is going to make this very difficult for future work, for any plantings or any work that you would do. The idea, I guess, might be that you could scrape it away. That's not the way it works. Those pebbles just get stuck in the soil and become just an unwieldy mess. Unwieldy? A mess. All right, last but not least, red mulch! I do have a reaction to red mulch. I'm going to try to stay on the pragmatic side of this, but let's suffice it to say that red mulch is the single biggest offender in all of gardening history. It is a dyed natural product. So they took what was a good thing and made it different colors. At one point, there was a blue alternative to red mulch. Didn't market as well, I suppose, when they did the testing, market testing. Red mulch is now sold in vast quantities. Now, here's the problem. First off, from a design perspective, this is the single most offensive look to your garden. You may as well pour paint on your organic matter, on your open areas. It is a travesty against any design perception. If you like Olmsted, if you appreciate any of the great gardens in our country or all over the world, you will notice none of them are going to apply these products, particularly red mulch. Now, just to take it a step further, red mulch will also retain its color. They've done amazing things with this product. In other words, it may fade slightly, but the color will mix into your soil such that even after you've decided you no longer like it, you're going to have to spend quite a bit of time getting rid of it because it will keep coming to the surface. Okay, so there is a wonderful alternative. It might take a little bit more work. You might not be able to get it at that store where you've been getting the red mulch. Okay, and even some of these companies that used to sell fantastic mulch, I will show one or two. This fits the bill. This is kind of similar to Hampton's Estate, which is a mulch that I use a lot. This isn't a mulch that the only reason I'm using it is because it's readily available in upstate New York. Pennsylvania Gold. Now, you know, there's a key thing that I look at when I look at mulch. I look for that. I want to see that it looks like a natural color, not like even a dyed black or dyed brown. I can smell that there's a little bit of, probably a little bit of horse manure, some sort of manure in there. It's very light and it dissipates quickly, and it's actually good for the plants, so I don't mind that at all. The second thing is like really, this is shredded hardwood. So, you know, some of these words you can ignore, but some actually are relevant. Aged hardwood bark mulch. Okay, so that's good. That's all good stuff. You know, decorative ground cover, of course, naturally dyed, naturally dark. All right, so that's important. It shouldn't be, but it is.